Hi everyone, it's Dick Gelderman here, and we're starting right on time. I'm going to be flying through today because I've promised that this is only going to be 25 minutes, and my big downfall is always trying to give people too much information, as undoubtedly you know. So today is all about multitasking as a myth, and so you're in the right place if you've ever wondered, you know, really, is multitasking effective and efficient? And you'll have the answer to that in 25 minutes. And you're also in the right place if you're actually doing multitasking and then you find your day still out of whack and you're wondering why. You'd like to become more effective, more productive, more efficient, more organised, and you don't even know how to start. And you're really, really busy and you're still getting nothing done. And just as importantly, there are other people in your team who feel the same way. And I'll give you some numbers as we go through this webinar, and you can see how much, if you're a practice owner or a business owner, you'll actually see by the end of this webinar, I'll give you some stats on how you can save 26%, 26%, that's about a quarter of your wages bill. So keep that one in mind. And we're going to do a little exercise as well, and if you haven't got pen or paper nearby, please grab it while I'm just doing these intro slides. And you also would have received a download to print out on which to do that exercise. So please just print that out. If you haven't got it nearby you, or it's another computer or whatever, that's cool. We can still work with that, but it'd be nicer if you had the little exercise worksheet. So by 12:30 today, or whatever time it is in your country, and I see there's some Americans online, well, it's 3 a.m. for the South Africans, so they'll get the recorded version of this. So in half an hour's time, my aim is for you to understand that there are two kinds of tasking, what's called multitasking, and there's what's called background tasking, and to understand and know the difference between the two, and also to understand that you can do one, but it's just crazy to do the other one, and to understand the cost to you and to your business if you multitask or your team members multitask, and then to develop strategies to do away with multitasking and once again to start regaining control of your life. So you could do this. This is not the exercise. This is just an intro thought exercise. And I'm just wondering what your day looks like. And obviously you're going to get emails, phone calls, SMSs, staff members interrupting you, maybe social media, maybe consulting or talking with clients or whatever. So, and if each of these, say, for example, takes 10 minutes, now how many of each type of those do you get in? And, you know, if you're trying to do something, let's assume that you're supposed to be working on an Excel spreadsheet or putting a marketing plan together for your practice, or consulting with clients, or having meetings with team members or whatever, and those things on the right-hand side, those emails, phone calls, SMSs, staff members interrupting, social media interrupting, other interruptions, if they're interruptions to your day and to what your prime, you know, focus is at work, you know, just write down the number of each of those interruptions for yourself and how often they occur in every 10-minute, you know, period of time during your day. It's an interesting exercise to do, and with quite a lot of my one-on-one coaching clients, we'll actually do this. We'll actually measure this during the day for 3 or 4 days. So in about 2 minutes, we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail. So just in the meantime, how many interruptions do you get in an average hour? How many do you get in an average 8-hour day? Add them up and calculate how much actually work time you have left. And if you don't have time to do it now, come back to it when we finish and do it. Now this slide, this exercise was done by the University of California at Irvine with a group of business owners, and this is what they came up with. So the average employee in the average workplace, including veterinary, the average amount of time that they can devote to a task before they get interrupted is 11 minutes on average. And the most common interruptions are colleagues stopping by, being called away or actually leaving a task voluntarily, answering emails, answering SMSs, answering social media posts, or maybe not even answering them, just being aware of them, switching to another task on the computer and or phone calls. And from a personal perspective, and if I had an hour to do this, I'd poll you guys and ask you, how many of you have had these sort of interruptions. But I won't do that for the sake of time today, because I think I know the answer. I think it'd be 100%. So again, that study says that on average, for the average employee, there were 3 minutes of time between each interruption, and each person could spend on average 3 minutes on a single event, and they could do that for 3 minutes before switching to another activity. So these interruptions are absolutely rife, as you can see. So now let's do an exercise for yourself, and I'm just going to shrivel my screen down and get up my Word doc. And this is the exercise that you've got, and you can do this, whatever way you like. You can use this phrase here, or you can do, and I'll do a simpler one for you. So get that piece of paper out, or get a piece of paper out, get a timer, which can be your phone, get a pen and a pencil. So I'm assuming you're ready to go. So the first line of the exercise, and I'll use my own version rather than the version that's on screen. So what I'd like you to do in the first line, and time yourself when you start and time yourself when you finish, is to write down the letters in the alphabet, A through the Z, A, B, C, D, etc., A through to Z, and time how long it takes you. So I'll get you to do that now. Ready, steady, go. All right, you should have finished that by now. Most people will. Some people may still be not finished, but that's cool. Just now, stop your iPhone, of course, whatever, when you finish it, and write down your time to complete that exercise on the right-hand side where it says total time. So I'm going to assume you've done that. Now, in the line labelled number 1, underneath on the left-hand side, you see the first line was M, the next line is 1. In that line, or on a piece of paper now, just simply write down the numbers of from 1 to 26, and again, time how long it takes you. Ready, steady, go. Okay, I think you should have finished that by now. Stop your stopwatches and write down the time that it takes you to do that. And then I'd like you to add up the time it took you to write A to Z and 1 to 26. Add those two numbers up and come up with a total. And now we're going to do the last part of the exercise, in which you're going to write down A1, B2, C3, all the way through to Z26. So get your stopwatches ready, steady, go. Okay, you should be close to being finished now, and what I'd like you to do is write down that time, and if switch tasking or task switching or multitasking, whatever you want to call it, was as effective and as efficient as we once upon a time believed or were told that it was, Michelle, is my volume okay? Peter's saying he can't hear me, but maybe it's at his end. Just let me know. If multitasking was not a myth, if it was not a lie, if it was not a fallacy, then the time taken to... Michelle, is my sound fine, please? Yep, okay. Michelle can hear me, so I'll go on. Peter, I'm going to assume that the audio issue is at your end with respect. So if it wasn't a fallacy, then you could add up the first one, A to Z, plus 1 to 26, and that would then be in total time equivalent to the same amount of time, thanks Kath, thank you, that as to do the A1, B2, all through to Z26. Typically when we do this exercise, that last line, line 3, you know, A1, B2, etc., takes 1.5 or double the amount of time as to do the first one. So what this is showing us is that there's a switching cost, okay? There's a switching cost from you having to think of the alphabet, A, B, C, D, through to the number 1, 2, 3. So you got A1, switch back, B, switch 2, switch C, switch 3, switch D, switch 4, etc., etc. So that is the switching cost, and that is your brain switching from one task to another. Now I could go into this in a great depth, but I'm not going to. So what is your personal switching cost at work? So studies show that the average person takes anywhere from 11 to 21 minutes to switch. So let's assume you're having a conversation with a client. You're in a consult, or you're having let's assume that someone knocks on the door and comes to you on the door and interrupts you and says, oh, you need to talk to Mrs. Smith on the phone or whatever. Just you answering that person and not even getting up and going to the phone puts your brain out of whack from anywhere between 11 to 21 minutes before it gets right back where it should be. And the more major the tasks that you're dealing with, the more major the switching time required. Okay, so switching cost is between 11 and 21 minutes. So that's how much time you lose when you're switching from task to task. And here's a little example I've done of it, okay? So there's a switching penalty when you go from task 1 to task 2 and back again. Now here's another example of the work time available per project versus the loss when you're switching from project to project. So you can see that the more simultaneous tasks you have going on at the one time, the greater are your switching time losses, if that makes sense. If you look at the far right hand column 5, all you're doing, I mean, you've got very little green, very little time that you can actually work on a task because the bulk of it is taken up by switching time. Now, practice owners, if you're looking at the finances of it, then the average estimate of lost productivity per person per day due to interruptions based on a 40-hour work week is 2.1 hours. So if you're paying each of your employees, let's pick a number, $25 an hour, and let's forget about the 0.1, then you're losing per employee 2 hours a day, 2 times $25, that's $50 per day per employee. $50 times 5 days, that's $250, that's $1,000 a week. You get where I'm going with this, and all you do is multiply it out by the number of employees. Now let's not worry about the employees, let's just worry about your own loss of productivity. How would you like to, you know, not have to do work at home or come back on the weekends? You know, you've got 2.5 hours up your, 2.1 hours up your sleeve every day if you stop this productivity drain. Now, that's an average of 28% of the work day, okay, due to interruptions and inefficiencies. And I'm not saying multitasking is the only reason, but it's by far and away the biggest culprit. And as I said, I'm going to show you how to cut your wages bill by, you know, 20-something%. Well, it may be a bit of an exaggeration, 28% cutting your wages bill, but sure as heck you can cut it in the high teens or low 20s, and I've done that with a number of practices that I've worked with. Now, Lord Chesterfield in 1740 had a really famous quote, and he wrote the letters to his son on becoming a man of the world and a gentleman, and he actually recognised this in 1740 and said, there's time enough for everything in the course of the day if you do but one thing at a time, but there's not enough time in a year if you're going to do two things at a time. Hey, it's 1740 and we're now, you know, almost at 2040, a bit of an exaggeration there, or early, you know, you know, 200 years, 300 years ago, 250 years ago, this was already recognised. Where did this start? It started in the early 20th century when some people saw computers doing what they thought was simultaneous tasking, doing everything at once. But the problem is that was a fallacy. The computer only appeared to do things simultaneously, i.e. to multitask, because in those days they only had one CPU, but it switched very effectively and efficiently from one task or one program to another. So it appeared to be multitasking. And the newspapers of the day, they came up with that phrase multitasking, and they based it on what computers were doing. And they said if computers can do it, well, people can do it as well. Well, we're not computers. So that is how you know, the computer doesn't, or the one CPU computers didn't do word processing, email, web browsing, and antivirus all at the same time. They switched very effectively and efficiently between them. Now with multiple CPUs, they can do a number of things together. But you know, us as people, we're not likely to get multiple brains like computers get multiple CPUs. So you cannot focus on two important things at once, and so your brain needs to switch. That means you need to log on and log off different portions of your brain, and that there is a delay there. And the more important the task, the longer the delay in switching. So when you're doing, you know, when you're answering your email and talking to a coworker, talking on the phone and reviewing your financials, talking on the phone and driving, you're switching between tasks. You can't do those things simultaneously. If you, just out of interest, go on to Google when we get off here and have a look at how many people walk off cliffs while talking on their phone or SMSing on their phone. Now, I know we all know about car accidents and being on the phone, but go and look up how many people walk off cliffs or walk into traffic due to, you know, when they're doing that. The numbers are stunningly huge. So this guy on the right shouldn't be doing all the things that he's doing because he's not very good at any of them. Now, you may ask me, hey, but what about I can prepare my kids' breakfast and watch the news? I can eat my dinner and watch the news, or I can eat my dinner and you know, Facebook or Google or whatever. Yeah, okay. Only one of those tasks requires mental effort. So that's called background tasking. Drinking coffee and being in your car, that's background tasking. Smoking and being in the car, that's background, driving the car is background tasking. But talking on the phone and driving, or SMS and driving, no, or even SMS and talking on the phone on two different phones. So eating dinner and watching TV, background. Jogging and listening to music, background. Making school lunches and talking, background tasking. Talking to the kids, all background tasking, not multitasking, background tasking. Now, so background tasking is fine, and it's a great productive use of time. Multitasking, important stuff, is not. Now, the important thing to think of are active switches, which are the ones that you instigate. So this is where you're in control. Yes, you're still losing time, but you don't do that many active switches. What typically happens is that a lot of the switching is passive. In other words, it is someone else's agenda. So someone sends you an email, sends you a Facebook post, interrupts you when you're in a meeting or on a consult, you know, knocks on the door. So you're their agenda. You're not your own agenda anymore. You're their agenda. This has been instigated by someone else. Now, don't think that when the email, you're doing something on your computer, writing a document, whatever, that email pings, you don't even answer it. You know, you're well controlled enough that you don't answer that email ping or that Facebook message or whatever. But even the ping going off distracts you, and it takes you 30, 60 seconds, minute or 2 minute, whatever, to get your brain back in the mode of doing what you were doing. So even that seductiveness of the ping is enough to, of that message arriving or whatever it happens to be is enough. So when you want to stop switch tasking, turn your email off, turn your Facebook off, and just create time in your day, a block, a work block, when you'll answer emails, answer your Facebook, do whatever else. But don't be at the behest of all these other people in your life that are controlling your brain. So active switches are the ones that you choose to make. This is where you instigate the switch. If you're multitasking and you're actively switching, typically it's a result of poor scheduling, or I'll be dead honest here, and I'm sorry, I know some of the people on the webinar quite well, and I'll say it's as a result of no scheduling rather than poor scheduling. They have not created a block of time to do certain things. So it's not a matter of poor scheduling, it's a result of no scheduling, and even poor scheduling is better than no scheduling, and good scheduling is obviously even better than that. And again, with respect, poor scheduling and no scheduling are an issue of poor self-discipline. And I can speak honestly, I used to have very little self-discipline around this area, and I'm now very, very, very rigorous with my work blocks. I'll do emails at a certain time, I'll do Facebook at a certain time, and I only do Facebook because it's a business tool for me. I'll do spreadsheets, I'll do client consults, etc., etc. They are all locked into time frames, and yeah. So when you start getting in better control of yourself, both mentally and with your scheduling, and you resist then you will start to resist the temptation and the need for switching. Passive switches, like I said, they're the ones that come to you by someone else's choice. Now, sure, some are unavoidable. You know, emergencies, crises. You know, in vet land that happens all the time. But true crises, where the staff member knocks on your door and says, "I quickly need an answer about this," and all it is how many tablets do I dispense or something. That they're not crises at all, and that's just poor training. That's poor discipline. That's poor systems and poor standards in the practice. Now, you can eliminate those quite easily by locking yourself in your office, putting a sign on the door saying X, Y, Z. And so, for example, there's a lady I worked with, a practice I worked with, that the lady who did the stock take, big practice, and they needed to do, they had one person in control of stock the whole time, and it was a multi-million dollar business. She could not do a stock take, and they did areas of stock take, you know, once a week. They stock took areas to make sure it was all online now, or correct. Now, she couldn't do a stock take without being interrupted. So what we did there, and then she got it wrong, and it took her literally 2, 3, 4 times as long. So what we did is, whenever she was not to be interrupted, she dressed in one of those fluoro truck tops, you know, those fluoro vests. And when she had that fluoro vest on, then everyone in the practice knew they were not allowed to distract her or interrupt her for any reason at all when she had the fluoro vest on. Now, that improved her stock control time by 2.5 times and increased her accuracy. So very simple ways that you can help eliminate distractions. You just have to think a little bit laterally. And also, with you, the business owner, a lot of staff will interrupt you because they need the answer to this, the answer to that, and they always think it's now. Well, the only reason it's now is because they don't know when they're going to get to see you next and when you're going to have dedicated time for them. So when you schedule regular meetings and you say, look, I'm available for everyone between 12 and 12:15 every, 5 days a week, then they're going to stop interrupting you nearly as much because they're going to know when you're available. And then with things like phone calls, block your day. Return all your phone calls at a certain time, say twice a day. Meet all your reps, meet all your staff members, all that sort of stuff. block time to do all that. And again, I could give you lots more detail here, but I'm not going to. Now, we're getting to the end, and this is a staff survey, right? Staff survey, veterinary staff survey. I know I've said it 3 times, very deliberate. 64% of your staff feel that it is acceptable to interrupt work to answer personal emails and personal questions or SMSs from a friend. So that's the workplace that we have. Now, vet practices are no worse, no better than any other business. That number is cross-contextual. That's costing you a lot of efficiency in your practice, okay? And the bad news is that when they're interrupted, when they're or you're interrupted, you don't immediately go back to the task. So there's a task switching cost increase here. So, you know, is being interrupted the norm in your business? Probably. So, you know, maybe this maybe this sign should be on you know, key point in the building somewhere. Stop interrupting. So the solution is to resist making active switches. So you have pre-scheduled time for all the projects and tasks that you're doing. You're going to minimise all passive switches and lock out possibilities for interruptions, and whether they're people interruptions or electronic interruptions. You're going to block time to do tasks of a similar nature. And you may say, I'm a solo practitioner, I don't have anyone to answer the phone, I'm on farm calls, whatever it happens to be. Have your phone got a voicemail? You know, I rarely, if ever, answer either my office line or my mobile. It goes to voicemail, and I return those phone calls in my blocked out time. We'll talk about this in another webinar, but work in 90-minute blocks. Do similar tasks for up to 90 minutes before you, and only then change. We'll talk about that later. So work in a 90-minute block and then have an active 10 to 15 rest and recovery break. So have active work for 90 minutes and active recovery for 10 to 15. So action steps. Last slide. Schedule one 90-minute, this is my suggestion, schedule one 90-minute uninterrupted work block to do your key critical stuff, the stuff that only you can do in your practice or in your business Monday, Wednesday and Friday. Uninterrupted, 90 minutes, just 3 days a week. That's all. Don't try for 5. Don't try for two 90-minute blocks a day, just 1 3 times a week. Organise those blocks so that you perform similar tasks sequentially. So for the first 10 or 15 minutes, you might answer all your emails, and then you might do all your, writing. Then you might do all your client phone calls. Then you might do all your staff meeting type, one-on-one meetings, whatever. Working within that 90-minute block, do similar tasks at the same time or sequentially. Make sure that you also have scheduled into your diary appropriate one-on-one meeting times with the key people in your business, whether that happens to be daily, weekly, or on whatever's needed for you personally and for them. Schedule twice daily 30-minute phone call blocks. To me, that's one of the godsends that will revolutionise your day. When you take and make all your phone calls in two 30-minute preset times. Schedule specific times to answer email, SMS, social media, etc. And then train people not to interrupt you. Now, what I'm going to suggest, if you can't make them not interrupt you or you can't get the concept through, then get lost. And what I mean by that is go out of the building and go and sit in your car or drive down to the local park or walk to the beach. But to get that 90-minute uninterrupted time, just get lost somewhere so no one knows where you are and they therefore can't get in contact with you. Now, the world's not going to end if they can't get in contact with you for 90 minutes. And if you can't train them well enough not to interrupt you, then if you have to, go somewhere and get lost. And then the last thing is to, have this become cultural in your practice so that you become a lot more, the whole practice becomes a lot more efficient and effective. So that's it for the webinar. I've only gone over for 4 minutes. So if anybody's got any questions, then I'm really, really happy to answer them. We're going to do these 25-minute trainings every month, and it's going to be the same time. I think it's the second Tuesday of the month every month from now on, and they're all going to be 25 minutes. The next topic is going to be get more clients, so that's the one for November. And I know I've got the December one done as well, but I've forgotten what the name is. So, but I'll tell you that one next month. So, any questions, please fire away, and I'm happy to answer them. This will be recorded, or has been recorded, or is being recorded, and it'll be available on our YouTube site. It's Diderick Elderman. Go there and you'll find it, or send Michelle an email and she'll give you the link to it. Feel free to share it with your staff. Download it, play it to them, whatever. The idea is that this gets as much airplay as possible, because these strategies are really important to everyone. So doesn't look like there's any questions. Doesn't look like there's any questions. By the way, there's one question come up. Yeah, good idea, Kath. Kath says wear headphones because, and I guess this just happened to you now, Kath, because you must be listening to this with this webinar, because you're saying people are looking at me and walking away because I'm wearing headphones. Great idea, Kath. Thank you. That's wonderful. I really learned something. Yeah, broke my train of thought. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So, yeah, anyone that was, I know I've got my train of thought back now. Anyone that was watching or listening to this webinar and trying to do something else at the same time, like do their emails, do their Facebook, do some stuff at work, you now understand why it just doesn't work as well. Because you can't, this is not a background task unless you're eating or drinking. That's background tasking, but being on the webinar and doing something else, yeah, doesn't quite work. So, alrighty, no more questions. Thank you very much. Really appreciate your attendance today. If you want to know any more about this, send me an email. That's it. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon or evening wherever you are. Bye.